All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patrick Kelly. I'm part of the Microsoft Customer Success team. I'm also here with Kelly Cleveland, who is my counterpart in this endeavor. And this is our first in a series of Skype to Teams transitions. Welcome. Thanks for helping make this a great opportunity for us this year. As we go forward, we're going to go through some of the Skype to Teams transitions, some of the modes, some of the migration paths, why you would choose one over the other, some of the pros and cons, and some of the pathways we can choose to go forward and what best fits your company. As I said, Kelly and I are going to be running this program now. Try This at Work will be a bi-weekly program, and every 2 weeks at 12 o'clock on Thursdays, we're going to have a lunch and learn, right? We're going to have the ability to dive into topics that our customers want to hear and our customers want to go forward with. And we look for your feedback too, and what you want to hear from us. The first three series are going to be concentrating on Skype to Teams transitions. But as we go forward, let us know what you want to hear from us too. First line workers, Teams governance, security, Teams collaboration, meetings, all these things are topics that are up for consideration. But today we're going to talk about and understand the transition from Skype to Teams. What does it look like from an end state? What should your deployment look like at the not at the beginning, but through the course of the parallel, if not collab modes that we're going to talk about? And then what's the end state look like? Also, what's a user going to experience from their side? What is it going to look like to have Skype and or Teams running together? What's it going to look like to have Skype and or Teams running in a collab mode? And then finally, what's it going to look like in Teams only mode? So some of those scenarios, some of those next steps, we're going to take a look at. So how do you manage that upgrade from Skype to Teams? You have to look at it at a little different way than you've looked at it in the past, right? Is that Skype, certain parts of it were just for collaboration, right? It's an application to assist you in the IM presence in meetings, some of those advanced workloads like audio conferencing, enterprise voice, cloud PBX. Those are some of those advanced workloads that go on top of Skype. And it can be used in that manner in conjunction with your other Office applications like Outlook, like SharePoint, like OneDrive. But Teams is different, right? Teams has the ability to do all of that in one. And that's where Teams is much more of a technical migration. Teams is looked at as a complete pane of glass into your Office 365 environment. Therefore, that change in the way you do your job and the way customers do their job and knowledge workers and information workers is vastly different than in the Skype and Outlook and OneDrive and SharePoint world. Because people don't automatically change. Just because you give it to them doesn't mean they're going to use it. And that's why Teams is much more than a technical migration. Flipping the bits to turn Teams mode on or assign a Teams license to an individual user is not technically difficult. It's really a checkbox and a save, and you're done. But that doesn't mean your people are going to automatically change. So the Skype world has been around for a while, and just that GUI interface of Skype is kind of similar to Link, was kind of similar to OCS. So your users are used to making that change. Are not used to making that change because that GUI interface has been drastically the same in all those years that we've been having this solution. Teams is drastically different, so people don't automatically change. That resistance to change is normal. It's human behavior. Shadow IT is more prominent than ever. So not only are users using probably Skype to do their job and their collaboration efforts, they might be using some other third-party software. So understanding what those obstacles are is going to help you in your technical migration. People and change are not universal. Just because some of your users are innovators, they want to be ahead of the curve. There's going to those users that are going to want to just dive right into Teams and have the ability to use all the cool functionality. They're going to want to do files and collaboration and Teams meetings and scheduling Teams meetings within Outlook and using the tools and all that cool stuff. They're just going to jump right in. There's not going to be any user adoption strategy needed with those users. But then you're going to have the polar opposite, where some people are used to using Skype and they want to use Skype, and that's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? That's your user adoption strategies and how we deal with those. And then finally, that technical and user readiness go hand in hand. The first part of this migration is obviously turning on Teams, but understanding what Teams mode we want to utilize to best get the user to adopt that technology. And that's where those two go hand in hand. So part of your adoption strategy, as with any application, is going to do vast amounts of planning in the forefront before you even start a project. The second part of that is picking a pilot set of users to enable Teams for, and we'll go over the collab modes in a second. But to enable this Teams functionality with and for, in parallel or in conjunction with using Skype. So let's go over what some of that looks like. This is probably the best slide I've found that talks about the Skype to Teams transition. If you don't already know, there's a few modes that you can pick when you're migrating from Skype online or on-prem to Teams. And before we get to this slide, know that there are customers, we still have those that are out there that are using Skype on-prem. And part of that migration strategy to get to Teams only is an interim step, a couple of interim steps there. For Skype on-prem users, you're going to have to enable a hybrid solution, because we're going to have to move those users from Skype on-prem to Skype online in our first step in our path to Teams. So that can be done in a couple of ways. Skype on-prem users can go directly to Skype online, and then from Skype online can go directly to Teams. There's another pathway too, in that if the Skype on-prem servers have the December 2018 update, that step can go from 2 to 1. And those Skype on-prem users can go directly to Teams with that update. More on that to come. That might be in part 2 of our series. But as continuation of part 1, Skype for Business Online on the left, you have 5 different modes that you can pick from. Basically, there's Skype for Business only. That's pretty self-explanatory. No Teams involved. And there's Teams only. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. No Skype involved. And I say that with an asterisk, and we'll go over that in a minute. So Teams only is where you want to be at your end state. Skype for Business only is where you're at your beginning state. So what are the other 3 modes of transition that you can look at? Probably the most popular and the easiest one is in the middle, is that Skype Islands mode. What that means is all the products and functionality and modalities within Skype and within Teams are available to users at any given time. They can use them in parallel, they can use one over the other, they can use them together. So you see in the Skype Islands mode, chat, calling, and meetings are still available in Skype. Chat, calling, meetings, as well as collaboration with your teams and channels is available in Teams. You can use them together. That's probably the most popular mode and probably the one I would recommend most of the time, because that gives you that transition period. And that transition period from Skype to Teams is going to be different from every customer, of course. It could be a little as a weekend, it can be as much as a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It's up to you to meet your business requirements. What I will warn you on is that while you have the 2 going at any given time, you are now supporting 2 different clients. You're now supporting 2 different solutions. So you probably want to keep that transition period as short as possible for your user adoption strategies. Certainly you want to have a pilot, certainly you want to expand on that pilot, and then certainly you want, right, and give this time to saturate into your environment. As people start using Teams, what we found is that it goes somewhat viral. And as we transition from Skype to Teams, you don't have to push Teams, it actually pulls users in. And as we start creating more Teams meetings, and as people that are on Skype start joining Teams meetings, what they see is the power of Teams, and they naturally gravitate toward that Teams application because it's more robust. It sounds better. It looks better. Overall, the quality is better. I can do more things with it, i.e. things could be chat with emojis, chat with customized emojis. I can video blur. I can customize my background during a video chat. All those things attract users, which is cool from an IT perspective, is that user adoption strategy isn't as hard, especially for those users that are innovators, right? That want to go to that technology, that want to utilize that next level of collaboration, that want to see and play with that new functionality within Teams. It's super cool, and users know that, so they kind of gravitate toward that. What we talked about in that previous slide is those laggards that don't necessarily want to jump to the newest technology. They've been doing what they've been doing. They know how to do it, and they don't want to do change. That's okay too, right? Because they can continue to use Skype in the islands mode. So all their functionality continues to work the same as it always has. But then you give that countdown of that time, that transition period where you're going from Skype online to Teams. You know, at some point you are going to flip that switch, right? And that's part of that change management process. That's part of that user adoption process, and also part of a user education process, right? Because it is a different mentality of how you do your day-to-day activities. Teams does look and feel different. So of course, a vast amount of your transition is going to be that user education part. And can assist with all of those levels of education, training. And the cool thing about Teams is there's lots of different levels of training. You can have a professional level of training. You can have an informal level of training. Within the Teams client itself, if you go to the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see help and you're going to see training videos right in the client. So as a user, if you have a question about how to do something, before you have to go and call the help desk or call some team sponsor that is helping you with this transition, you could probably go look it up right there in the client. Super cool stuff. So let's go to the top two, right? Skype for Business with Teams and Skype for Business with Teams with collaboration only and collaboration in meetings. So what does that mean, right? So you can see the two gray boxes in the top middle have different functions within the Skype client. So we'll concentrate on the top one. So in Skype for Business with Teams with collaboration only, what you're doing at this point is constricting some of the things that are available into Teams. So you see in Skype, you're going to continue to use chat, you're going to continue to use calling, and you're going to continue to use meetings within the Skype. What you're going to use Teams for is just for that collaboration part, right? You're going to use it for your persistent chat, your teams, your channels, all of that, those collaboration efforts are still available in Teams. But with no chat or calling, you're limiting the functionality of Teams. So this might work for you. This might be what you want to do for your transition period. Completely available, and certainly one of the modes that you can choose for your transition path. The second one, the Skype for Meetings with Teams with collaboration and meetings, is just that. I'm going to continue to use Skype for all my chat and calling functionality, whether it's enterprise voice on-prem or cloud PBX from that part. But I'm going to expand the feature set into Teams of all my meetings are going to transition from Skype to Teams, and then any new meetings that I schedule are going to be in Teams. I'm going to be able to continue to use collaboration within Teams in all the modes. But in here, the Skype for Business with Teams, collaboration and meetings, I'm going to parse those into just chat and calling in Skype and meetings and collaboration in Teams. Again, this expands upon the collaboration mode with collaboration only in Teams. This might meet your needs as well as a company. You might want to start transitioning all those meetings from either an on-prem architecture or an online architecture. So use all the advanced features of those meeting sets within Teams, but still leave the chat and calling to Skype. Again, there's no 100% right or wrong way to do it. These modes are meant to hit the collaboration and business requirements that you need in order to make that transition from Skype to Teams as smooth and as seamless as possible for you. What I implore you to do is connect with your Microsoft team. All our customers have customer success managers assigned to them. And part of our duty and our diligence to help you is to help you understand which mode works best for you. So get with your Teams TS, get with your SSP, get with your AE, get with your CSM. All of us are here to help you with this transition period. So what does the end state look like? If you haven't used Teams yet, I implore you to try to download it. If well, we're assuming you are licensed for Teams, but if you haven't used Teams yet, please do. Right? Even if you are in that Teams Islands mode, you can continue to use Skype for all your day-to-day activities. But what we want you to do is look at Teams and see what that entails. Today, in a Teams only mode, and Microsoft is in a Teams only mode, we no longer use Skype for anything. All of your left nav bar, your left navigation bar, as you can see, all of those things that we just talked about in the collaboration mode are available. So all my activities for my collaboration, all my persistent chats, my channels are all on the left side, but also all my meetings, all my calling, are there as well. So when we were talked about those Skype collaboration modes, and we were to limit the function of Teams, say in that top collaboration mode from that last slide, where there's no chat available in Teams, there would not be a chat icon on that left nav bar. So in a Teams only mode, you get everything basically. You have the ability for chat and calling to receive and initiate all chats and calls within Teams itself. This can still interoperate with Skype for Business users, right? So even if you're in Teams only mode and you still have to talk or IM or chat with Skype users, that functionality is still there. You're just leveraging it from Teams always, our Teams only. In the Meetings tab, all new meetings are scheduled within Teams. So when you go to Outlook and you schedule a new Teams meeting, it will automatically create a Teams meeting within your Outlook calendar. It will also create a Teams meeting within your Meetings client, your Teams client, where your Meetings icon is at. So you can look at it in both applications. You can also schedule them in both applications. So you don't have to continue to schedule meetings in Outlook if you don't want to. I can schedule them right from Teams itself. As we talked about, Teams is a complete an entire pane of glass into your Office 365 suite. We see that as really helpful because now when I want to chat with somebody, I stay in Teams. When I want to share a file with somebody, I stay in Teams. When I want to schedule a meeting, yes, I stay in Teams. I don't have to leave that application to do my day-to-day tasks. More efficient, more streamlined, easier to maintain. So when we migrate from Skype online to Teams, what comes with it? So two of the most important things that are in the Skype environment are one, your contacts list, and two, all your meetings. So that's existing meetings and reoccurring meetings. So when I migrate a user from Skype to Teams, regardless of mode, right, except for those top two collaboration modes. So when we're talking about Teams only, and we're talking about Teams Islands, we're going to migrate those meetings that are currently in Skype. So every night on the back end, we have a meeting migration service running. So when you schedule that user to be moved over to Teams, all their meetings flow with them. So all of those meetings get transitioned to Teams, and you'll have a new Teams icon, a new Teams meeting, as well as a reoccurring meetings, are also transitioned to Teams. So it won't say Skype anymore, it'll say Teams. So what happens to Skype for Business when you are in either islands or Teams only mode? A couple of things. Skype is still installed on the machine, right? Because you're going to be collaborating with other customers and partners that are still using Skype in the transition period. As we've announced, in 2 years, we're going to deprecate Skype for Business online. So during that transition period, some of the customers are still going to be on Skype. And what this allows you to do, and whether you're Teams only or any of the collaboration modes, you can still join those Skype meetings. You will join them from a Skype client that's on your machine, or from the web portal, depending if you're a browser or not. So you'll still be able to use Skype to join those meetings. You just won't be able to initiate chats or start meetings with Skype any longer. What this looks like to the end user is, hey, I'll get this window on the left side. This is, hey, I've transitioned to Teams. I want to go to Teams, or I can start Skype for Business right here from this part. You can still start it and look at it, but you can't initiate any collaboration with it. So none of the experience changes when I join a meeting. And anytime I join a Teams meeting, I get redirected to it with the Teams client that I just installed. So again, as you're on Skype and you've transitioned to Teams only, or Teams Collab, or Teams Islands, Skype users are going to see a little banner come up to let them know that as they transition over, your chats and meetings are going to Teams. So do you want to go there now and try it? If not, we understand. You can still join that meeting from that Skype client. And as you can see, as your meetings start to get transitioned over, you're going to have different icons. All your Skype icons are obviously going to be that Skype stamp on them, but all new Teams meetings, whether you invited to them or created them, are going to have the Teams logo on. Again, what we don't want to do is change the way you join a meeting, with regardless of if you're still using Skype or not. As we go through this pathway, right, there's going to be a couple of transitions, depending again on what mode you choose. So on the left, when we don't have any upgrade, this is the beginning of our transition period. Skype looks the same as it always has. As we start transitioning to Teams and we go into that islands mode, we're going to start getting notifications within the Skype client that, hey, something's going to be upgraded soon. Do you want to start now to use Teams? And if you don't, you can still continue to use Skype. And then finally, once we go to Teams only, when we launch Skype from an end user perspective, it's not going to give us the ability to start those instant messages and meetings, because we've already migrated that to Skype. We can still join those meetings and still correspond in that way, but all of our new stuff happens in Teams. So, wow, let's go. This 30 minutes goes fast. So it's 12:25. Let me wrap some of this up, and then we can talk about next steps. So our Teams meetings and our Skype join experience, again, look the same. From a Teams calendar, we were just talking about that in the 2 slides ago. When we have our meetings icon and we click on that, we still see all that join information, whether it's Skype or Teams, regardless. So in an instance of we've got invited to a new Skype meeting from somebody that hasn't transitioned over, it's still going to look the same when we join, because we're going to join from that Skype client, right? We can't join from obviously a Teams client because it's a Skype meeting. If we don't have that Skype client installed, we will be asked to join from a web browser. We have the Skype web app experience, so you can still join and consume meeting information that way. So once you go to Teams, you're going to start using the Teams mobile experience a lot more. It's much more robust. It's much more powerful than in the Skype world. Again, one of these things that we could talk about with you from a CSM perspective and a Teams TS is we can show you what that Teams mobile experience looks like and how it's vastly different than what you were used to in the Skype world. So from a Teams mobile experience, I kind of have that same UI, right? If you haven't noticed, no matter what device you log on to with Teams, we're trying to keep it agnostic from a user experience level. So whether I join from Chrome, whether I join from Edge, whether I join from a desktop or a laptop or a mobile, all the icons look and feel the same. Same with mobile. I still have the ability to join Skype meetings, but I also have the ability to join Teams meeting because I'm running that Skype and Teams mobile on my device. The look and feel is a little different, right? Because Skype has that older feel, and that new UI of the Teams experience is more of a purple and square feel. So again, to finalize these meeting scenarios, and we will continue with Skype Part 2 and Skype Part 3 in the coming weeks, but I just wanted to concentrate on meetings and that upgrade path today, is when I start an IM in Skype, it goes to Skype, right? So when I'm in Teams Island mode, I still have Skype and Teams running at the exact same time. When I start a Skype IM, it lands in Skype IM. When I start a Teams IM, it lands in Teams. So I have the ability to join from either of those clients. As we progress through that transition and we talk about it more, that experience will change a little bit. So you can see our native Interop calling is actually available as well. And what's going to look like from participating from a Teams client and a Skype client. So some advanced workloads is Teams is still our hub for teamwork within Office 365. That is our new framework for how we're going to do our day-to-day business. Teams is much more technical, is more than a technical migration. It is a user adoption and a user migration. Things are going to change. Teams only is the last mode you want to be in. That refers to the experience of a user that has been upgraded fully from Skype on-prem or Skype online to Microsoft Teams. And then meetings are always joined with their respective clients. Teams meetings are joined by the Teams client. Skype meetings are joined by the Skype client. So, wow, that was a quick 30 minutes. Next steps are, as I said, start using Teams. Engage your environment with Teams. Start getting that tool out there. Second, if you have questions or concerns, or you're about the proper path or mode to use, get with your CSM, get with your Teams TS, and we can walk you through those pathways, those ones that make sense to your requirements and your business needs, and the best way to get there from Skype Online to Teams only. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.